Hi, everybody. In this video, I want to start to introduce formulas to you. So formulas are a really important and useful tool in Excel where, we don't want to constantly be just referring to our calculator and manually entering calculations. We want to let Excel do that work for us. So what you're seeing here is a partially finished Excel worksheet. So if you actually go through Module 1, and it's pages 15 through about 31 there. You can actually enter all this information yourself. So it does walk you through the process of how to enter this data and different labels and things like that. So I strongly encourage you to kind of go in and do that. You may have a few extra borders here that I've added in that we'll talk about later, but you would have the basic information here like I do. So I do encourage you to try to set this up on your own and follow those steps in your text to get to this point. I do have a finished file posted for you in Blackboard that you can reference if you kind of need some help to see how it was done and kind of like, back and forth. But again, the point of Excel is to really learn how to do this on your own. Most times you're not going to be given Excel files already started. Usually you're going to be creating them yourself. So you want to start now learning how to enter that data. So I have some beginning data entered here for that Med IT conference that your book kind of keeps referring to. And already entered, we have the host address, we have the postal code, the phone number, things like that. And then you have some expenses. So they have different categories for which accounts were used, the expense category, subcategory, description of those expenses, how many units were purchased, and what that cost per unit was. So we want to actually start finding out some of these totals. So I do have a total column created here where I would like to know the total of each of these rows. And there's different ways that you can do this in Excel. So Excel, first of all, allows you to kind of create any formula that you want to. And it's pretty intuitive where you can use the plus symbol for adding. You can use that dash for a subtraction symbol. We use the asterisk for multiplication, and you just use that fraction bar for division. And it's always kind of fun just to play around first. So I'm just going to actually throw in some easy numbers here. Let's do 10 and 2 here to start. Now, when you have a formula, you always start your formula with an equal sign. So I'm going to go on my keyboard here, find my equal sign. Mine is in the top right of my keyboard, and I'm just going to hit equals. And you can do a few things. So yes, I could type in the number 10, and let's say I want to add these, then the plus sign, and then 2. And I would hit my enter key, and it will do that calculation for me. But we want to do something actually better than that. We want to use our cell references, not the numbers. So instead, I'm going to go ahead. I just deleted that cell, or the contents, excuse me. I hit the equal sign. And instead of writing the number 10, I'm going to select the cell that the 10 is in. Then I'm going to write my plus sign, and then I'm going to select the cell the 2 is in. And then I'm going to hit enter. And you notice I'll still get the same answer. So you're probably saying, well, who cares? Why does it matter which way I do it? And the reason is one, you want to get used to using cell references. It's just going to make your life a lot easier in Excel. It helps with shortcuts and things later on as well. But the other big thing is that if you change your data, the formulas will update automatically. So maybe I made a mistake and I don't know, this number wasn't 10, it was actually 13, right? So when I go in and I change that 13. Now, once I hit enter on that cell, my formula here also updated. So I don't have to change that 13 in multiple places. I just change it once and all my formulas update. So we all know that expenses change, budgets change, and things like that. You don't want to have to remember where you have that one number. How many times does it appear in your Excel worksheet? You want to just change it once and then have all your formulas update appropriately. So we do that by using those cell references. So the plus sign works, again, very just like you expect it would. You can also do a subtraction sign. So I could do 10, and then you can just hit that dash or minus key. Oops, why did I write 10? So I would hit my cell, then my minus key, and then 2, hit enter, and there's the answer. For multiplication, you use the asterisk that looks like that. So I could hit 10 and then that little asterisk. So mine is on the number 8. And then I hit my other cell. And the great thing here is you can see how it's all color coded too. So I can see that the cell reference is in the same color as the cell I selected. And then again, I can hit enter. And then lastly, for division, you can just use that fraction bar that you have. So 10 divided by 2. And again, there's the answer there. So you have those basic commands on your laptop right away. And you can create all sorts of formulas just using those basic commands. One thing I do want to point out here is that Excel does use the order of operations. So you want to keep that in mind as you're entering formulas. Let's say I want to do something like I want to add my cells first. I'm going to want to put those in parentheses, and then perhaps I multiply them by 2. And then I can hit enter, and then that's calculated for me. If I don't use my parentheses there, right? So let's say I leave that parenthesis off, and you can see I'm changing the formula up top here, then Excel is going to multiply first and then add, and we'll get a different result. So you do want to be really careful and keep in mind that Excel knows the order of operations. So you want to make sure you use that. If you have questions about the order of operations, your book does go through it very briefly, but if you can ask me as well, and I can go into that in more detail for you. I do have other videos that I can reference for you if you need some of that basic review. But Excel is really good at knowing cell references and knowing order of operations, so it's great. Now, the other thing you can do, my favorite thing is to just click cells. I just think it's so much easier, but you can also type in a cell reference. So let's say I want to add the 10 and the 2. Instead of clicking the 10, I could actually type that cell reference in myself. So see how the 10 is in C21. So I could actually type that in equals C21, and you can see that it will highlight. So you know that you have the right cell. And then I can hit times, and then I want to do the 2, so that's D21. And it's not case sensitive, so you could use lowercase. But you can type those cell references in as well, and that's fine. So whatever is easiest for you. When you're first creating formulas, it's great to do what I'm doing here and just try some basic, easy numbers that you know the answers to, so that you know that it's working. It's always good to check your formula. I do recommend checking, maybe you don't check the entire row or the entire column if you use the same formula like 10 times in a row, but check a couple of them and make sure that there's no errors there. So you do want to make sure that everything looks good. And it's great just to test them with some basic numbers to get started. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear my content here. So I'm going to select these cells. I'm going to right click and you'll see the option to clear. Clear is not the same as delete. Delete is typically used to delete entire rows or columns. Clear is what we want to use to just clear what is written in the cell. So I'm going to hit clear contents, and then I have a nice fresh cells there. So I'm going to go ahead and do my total here. Now, again, I have to do some math in my head and think about what am I trying to figure out. So when I say total, I mean the total for this row. So if I'm buying 1,600 brochures, for instance, and those each cost $2.45, I need to think about what kind of formula I need there. And I would need a multiplication formula, right? I need to multiply how many I purchased by the number that, the amount that each one cost. So I'm going to start always with an equal sign first. If you don't put an equal sign in, it's not going to work. So you can, try to do it, but you can see it's not even going to let me work it. So I have to hit that equal sign first where I want my formula. I'm going to click this cell, multiply by this cell, and then I go ahead and hit enter. And there's that first answer. And again, I'm going to leave that like that because let's say I decide, oh, I didn't need 1,600. I actually need 1,700 units. Then that formula will update for me appropriately. So again, we really want to use cell references when doing formulas, not numbers. The only time we would use the same number is if maybe you're using that number over and over again. It's not changing. But even then, I don't recommend it. I put that number in a cell and then use a cell reference, because if you need to change that number later, then it's going to take you 1 second versus having to change multiple calculations. So you really want to get used to that. And then here I can do the same thing, equals this number times this number, decorations for the banquet. I just need one of them. And the total cost is $850. And I hit enter. And I can keep going along the line that way. Now I do want to show you a couple little shortcuts here. So I'm going to be using the same formula over and over again. So what you could do is you could copy that formula if you want. So what I could do here is I could click the cell that I'm looking for, and I could go ahead and copy that formula. So you could right click and you can copy that way, so you can see it up top here. Or you can just press Control C for copy, and then you can go ahead and paste. So maybe I want to paste it in this cell here, and I could go ahead and click Control V to paste that. Or again, I could right click and I have paste options here that I could use. And again, I could kind of keep go ahead and clicking those, or I could even highlight a whole section and hit Control V, and that same formula will copy in. Now notice that the formula, it's somewhat intelligent in Excel, where it didn't just give me the same answer here, it actually performed the operation for the next row. So Excel sort of tries to predict what you want. And it noticed here that I have, the same kind of pattern here, right? I had, my same row being multiplied, and then it applied that, but to this row instead, which is awesome. Another way that you can do that, if you're going to be copying down a column, and this is a super nice little trick here, is you can just click the bottom formula that you have. And again, I'm going to do the same procedure over and over again with the same pattern. And if you go to the right, you get this little plus sign. So it's different than this plus sign, right? It looks like this here. And you can drag that down and it will copy that formula down for you. Now, you want to be careful because the cells do change, right? This was row 16, and then it copied to 17, to 18, to 19. So you do want to check your formulas and make sure that that is really what you wanted, right? So did the pattern actually work? Did it hold? But that's a nice little trick. So you just go to that formula, get that bold plus sign, and just hold the mouse and drag down, and it will copy that pattern for you. But again, I really encourage you to double check. So click into your cell, make sure the formula matches to what you want up there. Because sometimes it doesn't. You may think you want to copy, but it actually is a different pattern. So it's not working. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to do a little bit more work with formulas. So we can always calculate formulas manually and create them ourselves like I was doing here. But a total formula, when you're just adding up different amounts, is pretty common, right? So what I could do is I could hit the equal sign, and I could say, if I want a subtotal, so if I want to total up my column here, I could do this one, and then plus this one, and plus this one, and plus this one, and plus this one. And then I could hit enter and get that total, which is perfectly fine, but it's kind of a lot of clicking. So you do have some formulas that are pre-built into Excel, and there's some really great ones, and it's very intuitive. So what you can do is hit equal, and the one that I want here is sum. So sum is a way to total, just add up, just naturally add everything up. And you can do it a few ways. So up here under formulas, so if I go to that formulas tab, you have a whole bunch of formulas here that you can check out and try, like look around and see if there's anything that you may need, right? I can click financial and will show me different formulas, date and time, math and trade, etc. Your stats ones are usually under more functions. Auto sum tends to be your more common one. So to sum, to find an average, to count the numbers, so how many numbers are you adding up, to get a max value or a min value. So those tend to be more common ones. You can actually also just start typing. So let's say I think I want to do sum. And if I start typing, you'll see if the formula is already available. And it will tell you what it does. It adds all the numbers in a range, which is what I wanted to do. So you can double click that. And then what you do is you just select the cells that you want to use. Because they're all next to each other, I'm just going to hold my mouse down and drag. And you'll see that range of cells that we're using. So we're using G15 all the way through G19. And then what I can do is just hit enter and we're all set. If you don't have a formula that works, so let's say I try using like total, you don't have exact total, but you do have subtotal. So, if I click that, it says it returns a text representation of an array. I don't know if that's what I want. So maybe total is not the right word. So the word here that we really want to use is sum. That is the way to add everything up. Now, let's say I had two different areas I wanted to add. What I could do is I could highlight the first area, and then I could put a comma and highlight the second area. And that will add all those cells together. So I don't really need to do that here because they're all next to each other, but sometimes you may want to add, different columns to each other or different cells. So you can use that comma in between that will allow you to add different arrays that may not be next to each other. So again, there's tons of great formulas that we're going to see throughout the class, but the best thing I do is just encourage you to kind of play around again. So that auto sum feature under formulas are probably more your common ones, sum, average, min, max, right? But then there's a ton of others that you can use here. And it's pretty intuitive. So if you think you know what you want, usually I say just try to start typing and see if it pops up, or you can always do a Google search and ask, okay, what's the formula in Excel for this? And it will probably come up too. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we are going to look at tax here. So the tax is going to be on that subtotal. And I do have the tax rate already in. So the tax rate here is 5%. You do actually want to put in that percent. So when I put in a percent symbol like this, Excel knows how to multiply that. They will use 0.05 in the background as it multiplies. So you don't have to put in 0.05. As long as you put that percent sign, Excel will recognize how to work with that percent. So you could do equals here. I could hit my subtotal. I'm going to multiply that by my tax rate, hit enter. And then again, I want to total up my tax with my subtotal. So I'm going to use another sum feature. I double click on that, and then I highlight the cells that I want to add. If you want to put the parenthesis at the end, you can, but it works without it. And then we can just hit enter here. So that's a little introduction to formulas. Again, Excel lets you create your own formulas. I can add, subtract, multiply, divide. I can use exponents as well. So that little caret feature like that would be your exponent symbol. It knows order of operations. So you can create your own stuff in Excel, which is really helpful. But if there's a formula that you know is there, like the sum formula or an average, max and min are really helpful too. A lot of times if we're looking for a max value or a minimum value, we can use those to find it pretty easily as well. I'm going through my notes and just making sure I didn't miss anything in this first video. So I think that's a good place to stop here for this video. But I encourage you to, again, to go into that worksheet and just play around, just make up different formulas, make sure you know how it works. Check your formulas. So do the math out on a couple of the cells, make sure it actually works. We all make mistakes, particularly when you're copying formulas, as that's a great opportunity to make mistakes or to have it not copy how you think it's going to copy. And I'll show you some more tricks of copying as we go through the course as well along the way. But get practicing.